There are reports that the Prime Minister of the Iran-backed Houthi militia group has been killed in an Israeli airstrike on Yemen. Thousands of protesters were out in the capital Sanaa today to denounce Thursday's airstrikes, as well as the war in Gaza. Israel has been targeting the rebel group in retaliation for its missile and drone attacks, which the Houthis say are in support of Palestinians. Israel's military says it targeted a site near the capital where senior military officials had gathered, according to its intelligence services, and it's still assessing possible deaths among the Houthi leadership. Well, let's examine these claims with Hannah Porter, who's an independent analyst and researcher specialising in Yemen and the Houthis. So welcome back to DW. So, first of all, do you put any credibility in these reports?
It does appear that the Prime Minister, al-Rahawi, was targeted and killed. I mean, there are reports, obviously, from the Israelis, but also from some Yemeni sources. It should be noted that those Yemeni sources are not the Houthis. The Houthis so far have claimed that these strikes failed in their aim, but of course, we don't know the full picture yet. So certainly targeting took place, and it appears that the Prime Minister of the Houthis has been killed.
And is that going to be a significant loss to the Houthis? Tell us more about him.
Yeah, the context is important. This is obviously a high-level targeting by the Israelis, and symbolically it is hugely important. However, I think it's important to remember that al-Rahawi was appointed about a year ago, and although he is obviously affiliated with the Houthis, his political membership is to the GPC, the General People's Congress. So that is the political party of former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. And typically these GPC figures who feature in the Houthi government do not actually have a lot of power. They are there symbolically to try to show that the Houthis have broad support in northern Yemen. And really, I suspect that a figure like al-Rahawi was not particularly influential. Obviously, he's not a military figure. I don't think he's that effective in the government either. He's basically an administrative figure. And it's important to note where he comes from as well. So he's from Abyan. He's not from the northern elite that we typically see making up high-level Houthi officials' backgrounds. So he comes from a background that potentially is not that important to the Houthis and may make him more of a vulnerable target. And clearly the fact that he was killed in his home, or at least reports say that he was killed in his home, I think that's significant as well. The Houthis typically would provide protection or at least advise high-level officials to not simply be in their home while the Israelis are actively targeting them. So I think that's notable as well. He's going to be replaced by the Houthis. This targeting is not going to deter the Houthis, just like previous attacks by the Israelis have failed to do. But nonetheless, I think symbolically this is very important and just yet another stage in the conflict between Israel and the Houthis.
And do we presume that this was Israeli intelligence behind this? We've seen it be particularly effective in Gaza and in Lebanon. Or will this have been with the assistance of the Americans?
Of course, it is impossible for me to say. If I had to guess, I would say that it's with the assistance of the U.S. But still, I don't know if the intel is that impressive if you're targeting the Prime Minister in his own home. It wouldn't take really in-depth intel to figure out where the Prime Minister lives. Simply tracking his movements frequently enough should be able to give you that information. But yes, I suspect with a lot of this targeting by Israel in Yemen, it is with some degree of U.S. support, although, of course, the extent of which will be impossible for us to know.
Earlier this year, the United States and the Houthis, they actually signed a ceasefire deal which unravelled quickly. So if this conflict escalates further, do you expect Washington to re-engage diplomatically or indeed militarily?
I think that it is possible for the U.S. to re-engage militarily. It's hard to say what the Houthis will have to do in order to prompt the U.S. to re-engage, but it is important to mention the fact that the attacks by the Houthis on Israel, or the targeting of Israel by the Houthis, is actually not a violation of the ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and the Houthis. That was a much smaller scope. It was actually just related to U.S. ships in the Red Sea. The agreement was the U.S. would stop conducting airstrikes against Houthi targets if the Houthis stopped targeting U.S. ships. So the big, notable component of that ceasefire is the fact that the Houthis were still technically allowed to continue targeting Israel, which they've clearly done and will continue to do.
OK, thanks for guiding us through that so clearly. Hannah Porter, independent Yemen and Houthi specialist.
Thank you.